Buonasera a tutti, che bello vedervi così.
Good evening, everybody. How beautiful to see you so numerous at our meeting with Retail Talks. Innovation. What a wonderful term. Innovate. This is something I hear over and over again in our industry. It expresses a desire to change. And I like to paraphrase Marcel Proust, who used to claim that discovery does not consist in looking for new ideas, but discovering the ideas we already know. So, innovate, which is the meaning of this term. And why do we have 4 different professionals here with us? They're all different, one from the other, but they have a common denominator: enthusiasm, passion, competence. These are 4 excellences that have had far-sighted ideas. We have Francesco Moser, the champion in cycling, multi-laureate champion. Thank you very much for being here with us. I mean, it is impossible to describe all what he has achieved in his life, Francesco. As a young man, you were my myth. I was trying to emulate you, but of course I'm here, and this means I chose for a completely different job. Then we have Marco Carniello, the director of IEG, an innovator by nature. A person who is curious, a young man who is able to listen. I remember first time he came to the fair, one of his main objectives was to listen to all of us. He asked us questions, and he wanted to know about all the dynamics of this industry. And the results are here to see. Pierluigi Ascani, our reference scholar, the president of our research center, unveiling the secrets of our industry, asking you so many questions year after year, providing us with an observatory. And a few months ago, we were having lunch together, and he told me that an idea, an intuition, totally led him to completely change his office. He has more than 20 employees, and they are a true team, because innovation also means being a community, being a team. And he succeeded in this. And last but not least, my president, your president, our president, an innovator by definition, a 360-degree entrepreneur with the capability of looking beyond his own window case. A curious person, a person able to listen to the people, to relate to other people, just like all the other panelists. But let's try and understand from Francesco what innovation means. What does innovation, enthusiasm, curiosity mean for you? Tell us something about your long-lasting career. Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me? Well, human beings have always tried to improve their condition at every level. Think about ancient civilizations with the Egyptians building amazing pyramids. We still wonder how they managed to build them. And then all the following civilizations. So many innovations have taken place, especially if you think that they didn't have the means we have today, but nevertheless they made the impossible. And the world has progressed. And one of the most significant innovations is electricity, engines, allowing human beings to achieve things without too much effort. I mean, I come from the countryside. In the fields, we really had to work hard, but today there are machines that do almost everything. even though there's still some jobs requiring a human hand. So I was working in our farm, then I started running and cycling, and my brothers, my siblings had been cycling before me. There was a period when a few changes occurred, but no big ones. The most important change in cycling, in bicycles, was introducing the gears. Because just here there was a company selling bicycle gears, innovators, because in the past you had just one gear for the flatland and one for going uphill. That was it. But nevertheless, the tours were much longer than we know them today, 400 kilometers at one go, with the road conditions prior to the war. But at that time, cycling was viewed as a sport of resilience rather than a sport of technology and speed. After the Second World War, it became a sport of speed as well, and we started improving the bicycles, which became lighter and lighter. I remember that there was a period when the gear and the brakes were hollow, and attempts were made at making bicycles as light as possible, and then, of course, sometimes something broke down because it was too light. I have always tried also to get better and better, because when I started cycling, there were no shoe covers, and when it rained, sometimes it was really cold, and we used nylon bags to protect our feet. So one day I went in a shop selling scuba diving neoprene shoes, and I thought, that's wonderful, we can use that. Excellent for those bad weather days. So I asked them to put a zip so that I could wear it. And also our clothing changed completely. Until we reached a very high speed, sportswear was not so relevant. We didn't have all those modern textiles. I mean, when it was cold, we had woolen jumpers that became bigger and bigger when it was raining. And then we had pockets containing everything possible, and those jumpers became so heavy. Then all these elasticized materials were developed. One-piece suits. I mean, when you cycle at 50 kilometers an hour, aerodynamics becomes something important, and I was one of the first ones to use the wind tunnel, and that was really a big change in terms of training, because we changed the way we used to train. And I did the hour record in the winter. And everybody said I was crazy. But of course, we had been training for months and months, so that from October to January, when I broke the record, I could be in the best physical condition. And we used to go to Mexico. The record had already been broken in Mexico. It is a matter related to air resistance. And we did all what was necessary. The Enervit team that was supporting us during the tour asked me if I wanted to try Merck's hour record. Some had tried that but had not succeeded, so they said, we're going to support you. Our team will be there with physicians and technologists. So we started in October, and all the way through January we worked hard on that. But we started from nothing. We tested the sportswear, the shoes, the position on the bicycle, a smaller wheel at the front so that we could cut the air more easily. And we trained in the wind tunnel. That was the first time that bicycles were used in the wind tunnel. Because bicycles, well, it is very difficult to take measurements with bicycles. every cyclist is different. Some are tall, some are short, some take a position, others take a completely different position. So it is difficult to identify standard parameters. I mean, you just have to raise your head and the air will produce a different resistance when you're cycling more than 50 kilometers an hour. So aerodynamics play a fundamental role. So we tried all the different positions until we found the correct one. And we also tested the lenticular wheels. I still have at home the bicycle with which I actually broke the record. It was the first bicycle of this type in the world. And those wheels were much more aerodynamic than the wheels with the spikes. But the rule did not allow you to use other types of wheels. The wheel had to be carrying. So we found a gentleman in 1983 who worked carbon, making bodies for Ferrari cars, and he said, I can make lenticular wheels. The first ones were very heavy, the full wheels. But notwithstanding the weight, they were more performing than spokes, because spokes move a lot of air, and by shifting air, they reduce the speed. So these wheels, I mean, we tested the first ones here in Milan, inside and outside. And when I was in Mexico, they actually brought the lighter ones, the newest model. And after a few days, I actually managed to conquer the record, which is still today. And these wheels are still used today for this kind of competition. And they have become much better today. They're incredibly light. So if you have an objective, you have to try and achieve it. So, of course, you have to follow the rules in sports. It's not as if you can do whatever you want. Right, but from an idea, you actually got to the solution, which was possible only thanks to the work of the whole team. Yes, I remember that Professor Ferrari was supporting us, and he had an Olivetti computer. It was the beginning of the computer age, but he was able already at that time to plan speed. And with his figures, it told us what we could achieve. Also, when training, we introduced some innovation. Things have further improved. I was the first one to use the system to check your heart rate. A device that was so heavy. The heart rate monitor at that time was so heavy that you could not use it when you were competing. But today there are heart rate monitors that tell you how much strength you're developing, and they're placed directly on the bicycle. And all this allows you to train and to arrive in the best possible physical condition, which may not last forever because, of course, your body gets tired when you use your body for sports. However, cyclists train to meet their targets. In the past, we just ate what the kitchen of the hotel was providing us with, but today, teams have got their own cook. And there are teams that are followed by a truck that has special mattresses for cyclists so that they can always sleep on their own personal mattress so that they can sleep better. So research triggered off by intuition, and a team making small, gradual improvements in an industry which used to be static. Yes, it was a very traditional system. So the first change was the gear, that moving onto the bar provided a big improvement. Yeah, today you've got an electronic gearbox, so things have really changed enormously. And we had 5 gears plus 2 gears, 2 at the front, 5 at the back. Now they got 12. And I mean, you could actually do the whole season with the wheel, because you can use every possible speed for every possible uphill and downhill and flat land. And this is the result of research. In the past, when Campagnolo had the monopoly, the company located nearby here, with a monopoly of bicycle accessories, things were different. Then the Japanese arrived and the Americans, and they had made a lot of research with engineers and experts. I mean, a bicycle is not like a car. The bicycle has to be efficient and light, because your driving force does not change. And of course, there are people who are faster, people who are slower, but you can't increase the horsepower of a cyclist. So you have to try and be as efficient as possible with the lowest possible weight. Take the wheels. In the past, we had very thin tires. Now things are changing. So I remember sometimes a team opted for some sort of sportswear which would allow them to be some seconds faster. Well, the basic concept is that you have been daring because you have applied to a traditional static sector some innovations which have brought us to present time. But this has been possible only because of the work of a team.
You always have somebody checking on the efficiency of the athletes. And the professionals have to undergo maybe 2 visits per year because, there were accidents occurring, and there's a great research underway also in terms of medical research, because you have to prevent accidents from occurring. Sometimes you can just die, even when I had to stop the sheriff. This was your famous name. So you are the leader, but just after you, we have a member of another team, the member of the gold team. We always see his picture of Vicenza Oro, and he's always referring to the gold team when he talks about his team. Well, Marco, I got very emotional yesterday because you were taking the floor yesterday and you said that the trade fair is shifting from a location where transactions obtain to a location where contacts take place, where interactions take place. Marco involves us as member of his team because sometimes we have calls with him and he asks us what is the sentiment when it comes to the trade fair. So we interact all time with the organizers, and it is the buyers who actually have to refer about the idea they have about the trade fair. And Marco Carniello is always very true and made the relationship with his co-workers as strong as possible, so as to bring about innovation in the trade fair. Yesterday he referred to a very far-reaching project, because they here at the trade fair they always look ahead at future potential developments, because the trade fair makes our environment ever more livable, as it were. There are many different roles in our industry, but now at the trade fair we can interact, we can talk, and this is something that we owe it to Marco Carniello. Can you tell us about what your vision of the trade fair was? Because you were struck with a vision, weren't you? You're very shy when you started off, but then some stage you decided to establish connections, to talk to everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for giving the floor. It's a great honor. I feel a bit ill at ease having to take the floor after Francesco Moser. Well, I can say I am no shy person, but I believe that whenever you want to launch a new project, you have to have humble at the beginning, especially when you start on a new job, when you have to talk before new shareholders, when you are about to take up a new challenge. I was no expert about trade fairs when I started off. I knew nothing about it, but you know, managers often find themselves before new opportunities, and at the beginning we cannot but listen. Our president was great when it came to listening. Listening is the first thing we should always do, because then I'm going to touch upon innovation as well. As a matter of fact, we said that we have to have a digital trade fair, that we have to contribute to a higher degree of digitization. Now, the people at my team are in their 20s, so they are digital born, but that was not all. It was not just technology, you know, technology doesn't say it all when it comes to innovation. Innovation may be brought about by different things. We wanted to lend our ear to the market to understand changing needs in the market, and to do so we had again to ask questions. We interacted with Federpreziosi, and we spent long hours to understand what retailers wanted, how their relationship with their customers was changing, how often should people visit them, where sales are experienced. Sometimes we also had to ask maybe naive questions even. And people shouldn't risk seeming too naive. Sometimes when you ask a simple question, you might run the risk of being considered as a nobody. But you know, you have to take the risk. You have to be strong enough and somehow pretend or to look silly or to look naive and learn. I think that you shouldn't be too bold, you know, and you have to be naive at the beginning. You have to be humble at the beginning and ask questions and listen. So again, we lent our ears, we listened at length, and we understood that the greatest innovation had to do with granting the trade fair in the industry to do new things. So not only did we have to have booths, you know, but you also wanted to have opportunities to meet people. Perhaps you don't go to a trade fair just to make your purchases, because you can see your agent at your stores, but you come to the trade fair for other purposes, because you want to learn something new, to learn about innovation, to see what is being done. This is certainly no technical innovation, but it is innovation. It is soft innovation, because nobody was doing that earlier. So through simple steps, we arrived at innovation. This is no Silicon Valley project, but it is working. 2023 is the first normal year after COVID, and we are celebrating the 70th anniversary of the Vicenza Trade Fair. And there's no added technology, there's no sophisticated technology behind it. Digital technology is pervasive, but this is not all, you know. I'm sorry if I repeat it, but again, we wanted to be helped in doing our job better. but it is your business model which is key, and this is what we are focusing on. We again lend our ears. We listen to everybody. You know, the more you work in a certain industry, the greater is the risk of not asking questions, not analyzing what is happening. So whenever I come across people like you, retail, I always ask, how come you're here? What are you looking for? What are your needs and requirements? And I believe that this, again, might seem a bit simple-minded, but I think that this is very useful. All my team is doing likewise, and actually things are actually proving right. Pretty enthusiastic, wasn't he? This is the beauty in our country, you know. This is the beauty in Italy, to see managers in our country that carry out extraordinary job with a very nice grin and a face. So curiosity and innovation, these are the main theme in what Marco said. But I believe that this is similar also to what Pierluigi Ascani is about to say. Also, Pierluigi Ascani is asking questions, always with a humble attitude. He seems like he's no member of this industry, but when he talks about jewelry, you know, he can tell stories that nobody knows, because this is his very nature. He's a curious man. Sometimes he has to make a gift to his wife, who's amongst us, and whom we'd like to salute, and he's always asking questions. And even when we talk with his co-workers and the members of a team, we know that he's always asking questions. That sometimes he sends out stories telling we should do this, we should do that. And you know, this is actually the winning ace for Pierluigi. There's a word that Pierluigi is using. He always refers to me about the beginning of his career, and I was always quite hit by his courage, but his boldness in starting new unpaved road. I was a student of his at one of a master when he was a professor. Thank you very much for your kind introduction. You've been far too good. We talked about being humble. We talked about lending our ear, listening. Well, I believe that innovation requires some degree of boldness even. So to innovate, whether you're aware or unaware, you are experimenting a new track, something that hasn't been experienced before. When you do something new, you know, you can turn out to be wrong. You know, innovation is not always synonymous with doing good or doing the right thing. But even when you don't do it right, even when you fail, even if innovation is not positive, well, you're doing something good anyway. You basically added some piece of success. At least you understood what you shouldn't do to achieve your results. So you should never give up, basically. You should be bold, try a new path, not feel discouraged, beat untrodden paths, and sometimes coming up with failure, but still going on and treading on. Earlier on, I was hearing you talk about innovation. Innovation entails doing something new, first and foremost, right? Otherwise, it wouldn't be any innovation. So you have to try something that has never been experienced before. This is what innovation is all about. But doing something new doesn't necessarily mean that you do something useful or interesting. You can do something new, which is not interesting. But innovation entails doing something new for the first time and doing something good, something that has created value. Innovation is value creating. Not just for the one that brings about innovation, but for the rest. So trying to join the dots, basically, of your imaginary drawing, bring about innovation, entails doing something new, doing something that creates value for the rest, not just for yourself bringing it up. Basically, it adds to maturity, and you add to the ethicity, so you create value for the rest. This is why an innovator is always brave and courageous. There's something else that I have heard. Innovation is not something that you can create on your own. It takes a team to be innovative. There are people maybe that you can work with on a daily basis, and it is with them that you bring about innovation. Because to a certain extent you have to listen and to heed what is being said by others, because you do not have all the pieces of the puzzle. You know, each of us may contribute some bits, and all together we frame innovation. All together we can contribute to innovation. This is all. This is what it is about. Innovation entails something new being done, something that is value creating for the rest and not just for myself bringing it up. And innovation is something which is done with your team for all the other. So apart from business success, from economic results, and innovation is something else. Innovation is certainly a driver for development. It's a way to tackle issues, to tackle history, because actually we contribute to the making of history. At this very moment, when we join efforts, we can contribute to the creation of the story of the present. When people join efforts, when they join efforts to create something new, they contribute to this story. They contribute to the people sharing a common vision, a common dream, something which is revealed when you make it. So innovation doesn't require technology alone. It doesn't necessarily have to be with economics and with businesses. It entails being together, joining efforts. Highway number 1 in Italy took some 4 years. Well, now in 4 years, you can only make a manhole, certainly not a highway. This is what you can do with a public tender. Again, the highway number 1 in Italy took 4 years to be made. Just after the war, when the Marshall Plan money was made available, the Italian government and the delegate from the trade unions were talking about how to spend this money, and the decision was made.
Yes.
So should we build churches and houses first or factories? The decision was made, factories. And 15 years later, we had the economic boom. Because Italy was actually developing together in one direction. Maybe each one with his or her own ideas. But we were debating. We were talking to each other, we were exchanging ideas. Sometimes maybe we were even quarreling a little bit. We were thinking about how to do things in a different way. But when a decision was made, we all went in the same direction, with the same vision, with the same horizon. And we were innovating. So it is this aspect of innovation that somehow is what we need today. Innovation as a way to be together and make history. This mesmerizes people and makes those people not only human beings but citizens, living and working together. The philosopher has spoken. Thank you. President, you have just taken over a key role in the light of what Pierluigi told us. Innovate means asking yourself a question. Should we build houses and churches first or factories first? And which way should we go? Unity, being together, working together, where you represent an association. Many actors present in this room are members of your association. So, which are the priorities of your association? What is innovation, in your opinion? And then, how can we bring their experience as innovation into our industry? You can't have companies unless you have people. You can't have technology if you don't have people. In other words, we have to work on the team, on the people of the team. We need the best possible technology, but we must be able to apply it, because if I bring the best possible technology in my store and my shop assistant is not trained to use it, I will be technologically advanced, but I won't be innovative. We have heard several times that being innovative means changing something regarding the status quo. And to change something, you need an event, a crisis, a need, a financial problem. And we must be ready to tackle this. And to tackle this means changing something compared to the past. I know that you're very curious and you interact with a big community of people and you have amazing relational skills. And it is awesome. I mean, we have been in Arezzo together in a couple of hours. You knew all the institutions represented at that fair. And you've done the same here, talking with the representatives of other institutions. Please confirm if I have understood this correctly. You believe that on your own you can't get anywhere, and you have understood that innovation means being able to talk all together, to debate together, to try and reach a common objective, which is what we have actually learned today. Well, yes, the stories that we have just heard all go in this direction. I liked it when Marcus said that even though we do not need a replacement in our stocks, being here today means being innovative. This is extraordinary, Marco, because let me quote Francesco. He broke a record in '84. In '86, if I remember correctly, Antonella Belluti won the Olympics with a Francesco Moser bicycle. I am sure that that bicycle was built on the experience made 12 years before, when a study was carried out on this new innovative bicycle. So today I come here, I see things, I exchange ideas, I listen to requests, and I store all this. This becomes information, experience, which I may use in 6-7 months. I've seen colors today, I've seen shapes, new designs, and maybe I'll need this in 8-10 months, in 1 year, when somebody will propose something to me with certain requirements. And thinking about this experience here, where I saw innovation, where I saw certain solutions, I can make the best decisions without making mistakes. Sure, because we are actually driven to do something. I mean, it is my job. Sometimes I come and see you in your stores. Tiziana is always positive, innovative, looking towards the future, but not everybody is like her. Sometimes we just close ourselves up in our comfort zone. President Andreis, in the last few days, sent a message to the category inviting all the members to come to the Vicenza Fair, even if they do not need to buy anything. Why? Because it is a school of life. My honorary vice president taught me that going to a fair is like going to the university, because there's something to learn, always. And today, our speakers have conveyed enthusiasm, passion, and optimism. These are three synonyms, I believe. But before concluding, I would like to ask our panels, our panel members, how they are going to use their experience in an industry where passion and exchange with the market are the #1 factors. Sometimes we use our shop window to convey the emotional value of the jewelry. Maybe it is not enough any longer. Maybe we should look at a wider horizon. Throughout the years, we have organized our digital talks, which have now become the retail talks. So talks, conversations about what is happening in the retail. Why? Because I want you to leave this room with some extra useful tools in your toolkit. Something that can be useful to do your business, to make your business. Today we have innovators with a capital I that can give us suggestions. So my last question is, Francesco, in an industry selling emotions, feelings, how would you use your experience, your stubbornness, your desire to make the change, to direct the change? Because we must not be inert, we must be active. We must anticipate change. And I believe that this has actually emerged from your words. You wanted the change. You did not want to follow the change, but to act it. Well, the world is now a fair. I mean, you go around the world and you see so many things that were impossible in the past. And with all the means that are available to us today, in every moment you can see amazing things. You may not be interested in them because maybe you're focusing on something else, but you see them. And finding an intuition, something that can open up a certain market, or enjoying the empathy of the audience, because it is the consumer that buys certain items, and you must always be able to empathize with customers. You must always be able to give them something new that did not exist before, finding better solutions. But this does not always happen. There are intuitions that sometimes happen and shake the markets. You don't always have something that everybody's interested in, so we are continually looking for a way to trigger off interest. Then, of course, there are different economic cycles that may promote certain trends. The ongoing war is actually curbing the economy. And we all wish for the war to finish. But it doesn't look that way. And it rather looks as if people try to make it last as long as possible. So I have the impression that they do not want to stop fighting. They don't want to put an end to that war. And I mean, if they destroy the whole country, what is going to be left? Francesco, let's try to keep on an optimistic note. President, Francesco spoke of innovation, and you need courage to apply innovation. So what about these teachings? What would you do in our industry?
We talked about new things. Well, such new things, even at a time which doesn't look that rosy, well, we have to introduce them all the same, because so as to get ready to start on a good positive note immediately, because if we lay behind, obviously we waste our time. What about you, Pierluigi? What do you say? Well, Stephen is always asking difficult questions. I got here very early this morning, and I walked through the aisles of the trade fair. You probably wanted to look for something nice for your wife. He's a dear friend, isn't he? So anyway, this is what I came out with. Well, innovation is certainly not that straightforward at all. Wisdom is not just made up of answers. You can meet up with something very educated who doesn't have any answers. I believe that your wisdom is synonymous with raising questions. And the more complicated the question is, the greater possibility for it to disseminate knowledge and wisdom. ChatGPT, AI chat box, has all the answers, but it doesn't have any question. So either we put our questions right, or he would know. It is pretty much as a Socrates when faced with the oracle. So I should think that we should focus on what makes the difference of one jeweler and the competitors. Are there jewels showcasing in his windows that make the difference, or is it the price that makes the difference? And then we have all the marketing toolbox that we can delve into. But is that the difference, or is there something else rather? Because jewels could be showcased just as nicely in a competitor's shop windows. So I believe that the difference lies with the relationship we can establish with the consumer, with a client, because the jewelers, again, can lend their ear, can listen to what customers have to say, and can tell a story, can tell the narrative of a certain jewel, interpreting the needs or meeting the needs of that young customer that has just walked into his store, that perhaps has walked into a jeweler's stores for the first time and has to make a question. So I believe that what makes the difference lies in the possibility to tell the story about that jewel and to interpret the requirements of a customer, of a client. Maybe you don't actually finalize the sale, but the customer is loyal all the same. And maybe a purchase is made down the road. But again, it is not the jewel that makes the difference, but it is the story which is told about that jewel. And it is the understanding of the customer's needs by the shop owner. And it has nothing to do with technology. Again, it is the storytelling capability that makes the difference. So we have to establish a relationship with our customers, interpreting it every time, understanding our customers' requirements. Thank you, Pierluigi. When I met Marco, he told me a similar story to the one that Pierluigi just told us. He told me at the time that he would rather go retailer rather than the other, because he was telling us, because that kind of retailer would tell him a story. I often tell this. anecdote myself, because even people who are expert in an industry, they always try to understand what is the relationship with their counterparts. This is what Marco understood right from the beginning. Now you are the general manager of the trade fair. You should basically change hats and try to think as a consumer. After many years of experience as a manager, what do you think that the trade fair has taught to retailers? What is innovation that has been brought about? Well, I can only talk as a consumer, and perhaps I'm not the typical target of retailers here gathered. So what I can think of is as follows. To find new innovation, to adopt the right approach, you always have to ask why. What do I mean by that? You always have to ask questions. You always have to also understand why you have a good results in a certain year. I was telling Stephen that we are doing so well, that we're growing. Made in Italy grew by 40% at the end of 2022 vis-a-vis 2019. And 40% is no peanuts, is no negligible growth. 40% is huge. So trying to understand why we're doing so well. Because oftentimes we wonder why we are not doing well, why we have poor results. But I believe that it's as important also why we're doing well. You have to understand why you can get such good results. Now, there's Einstein and then there are all the rest. So we have to start from the assumption that we're not geniuses. So we have to understand also when we do it right. Because I believe that that can pave the way to further success, to repeat success. And, it's not a stroke of luck that makes you be successful. The situation is very complex. The world is very complex. So you have to actually wonder why you're doing well if you're doing well and understand it. This is the right approach to go further and to keep doing well and to bring about further innovation. So I should try to understand why I have good results and try to improve. You don't have just look at competitors and try and understand why they are doing well. You have to see it for yourself. Maybe your competitors have other business models, or they rely more on the web or on direct stores. So I think that you should ask very simple questions that can trigger innovation so that you can understand full well what you're doing, even if you're doing well. So there's no a recipe that is not a good for all recipe, but I think that asking questions is always a very good way forward. If you're failing, if you're successful, at all times you should ask yourself why. You should understand the reasons why, so as to get ready to tackle the challenge of the future. So again, asking questions is always the way forward, and always also feel the wonder. Thank you. Now, Francesco. Thank you, Francesco. Congratulations for the emotions that you make us experience. I, for myself, feel greatly emotional. Thank you also to Marco. Thank you to Pierluigi. Thank you for your philosophical considerations. Thank you, Stefano. Thank you. Thank you for your commitment. Thank you for guiding us. And thank you to all of you for being with us.